Hey everyone, this is Renee from Sweet Pea Labs here to give you a video preview of the life cycle of a plant digital interactive notebook. Here on the screen, I've got open the two files that will be available to you in this product. So you'll get a teacher version of the interactive notebook and you'll get a student version of the interactive notebook. The teacher version has a few more slides in there that aren't included in the student version, and the student version is just very clean and simply the notebook. So we start out here. I'm going through the teacher version just so you know what's in there. We always start out with a title page. I give you some tips and tricks talking about making sure that you share it to students, making sure you make a copy for each student, keeping it in the edit version and not making it view only. If you make it view only in an interactive notebook, they won't be able to move the pieces of the slide. I've included here this tutorial I've created on the basic tools in the toolbar of Google Slides. That's for you to include for your students if you want. It's just included in the teacher notebook as a reference or a resource for you. And then I have here a Google Slides tips sheet. This is included in the student version as well, so that they can refer back here if they're confused about what to do to a piece or how to change font size or what have you, depending on what they need to do in their notebook. I always start out the student notebooks with a welcome and just telling them a little bit about what's going on here, emphasizing that they can check their tip sheet, that they can press undo if they make a mistake or they resize something. And then we get on with the notebook, and we're talking about the life cycle of a plant here. So starting out with the basic thing, that the life cycle is a circle, talking about it going from seed to mature plants, and that they'll soon be a life cycle of a plant expert. And then I break down the life cycle into basic parts, starting out with the seeds. And then I do have some vocabulary in here, very simple. This is elementary level notebook, so just pointing out that this is called an embryo, and that's a baby plant, basically, inside a seed. And then I do go into depth a little bit about seeds here, just talking about seeds can be in different shapes and sizes, and they can be covered by shells or fruits or cones, and giving them real examples of what seeds might look like out there in nature, making sure that they know that inside of this there would be seeds, or inside of this the pine cone there are seeds in there. In the pumpkins, the seeds, those are kind of obvious. Dandelion seeds as well, that an acorn is actually a seed, and things like that. And we get into our first interactive part here, where we're doing a seed sort, and students are asked to sort the seeds into the correct categories, whether it's a shell, a fruit, or a cone. And all they do is look for the crosshairs here, and they can drag the picture to the correct spot. So it's a drag and drop exercise there. And in the teacher version, I've made sure to include an answer key for you so that you can quickly see what the answers might be. The next page here, we've got a what did you notice page, so another interactive part here, talking about what they've learned about seeds. One thing that they've noticed about seeds on each of these, it says type here, so students will just click in the box and they can type there. And that will work on all three sticky notes. And I have little notes down here in the speaker notes for the students as well. So it'll say something like, don't forget to fill in all the sticky notes, type one idea in each, just to make sure we clarify what's happening in each of the sticky notes. And then moving on, the life cycle of the plant, talking a little bit about germination. And, you know, just stating that that's when the seed begins to grow, and a couple things that a seed might need for germination to occur, temperature, moisture, oxygen. Showing germination examples in the real world here. So in nature, looking at germination. Moving on to, you know, the plant growing into a seedling, and then a mature plant down here. And talking about how the mature plant will grow flowers. We are talking about seed plants here. And so they will grow flowers, and this is important because those flowers will eventually produce seeds through pollination. Talking briefly about pollination. I go in depth about pollination in my Parts of a Flower interactive notebook. And that talks about how flowers reproduce, how pollination occurs, and all of that. But here is just a brief mention of pollination And the basic point being that seeds are created when pollination occurs, and that pollinators help make that happen. And so here showing that we're going from a flowering plant being pollinated here to a fruit here, which is the bean pod. And inside the fruit are the seeds. And in here also mentioning that some plants may grow a cone or a shell for the seed instead of a fruit. I think some people get confused about that. And then this is the great debate about like what are vegetables, what are fruits, talking about the biological term of a fruit, things like that. And then here's kind of a conclusion of once the seed pod, the seeds form in the pod, we can dry them out, we can replant them, or we can even eat them. Here are some just quick examples of mature plants that students might be familiar with. And now they should notice that, wait a minute, these are seeds. Look at all of these seeds here. Seeds are housed inside the zucchini. These are seeds. Seeds are in the cones, right? So putting that together, that this is encompassing a full life cycle of plants. Here's an interactive portion showing what they know about the life cycle, and they can refer back to the pictures previously mentioned in the notebook. And so this is a drag and drop thing here too. So they would just drag it to the box and complete the life cycle. And I have a clue down here that says use the size and shape of the boxes as clues if students get stuck. Okay. And in the teacher version, I've included the answer key. And, you know, you're on your way to becoming a life cycle of a plant expert. And so here, quickly, I wanted to talk a little bit about seed dispersion and how seeds are spread. You know, really talking about like, wait a minute, okay, we have these seeds, now what happens? Because the life cycle doesn't continue, right, in a circle, like I said it did earlier in the unit or earlier in the notebook, unless the seeds get planted somehow and spread around somehow. So brief mention of this here. And then how do seeds disperse? I mentioned disperse up here so that they have that vocabulary word. And so we're talking about seed dispersion. Here I've created a very large chart so students could see the pictures better. I had the text boxes off to the side, so they might have to use the scroll bar on the bottom, just depends on the computer. And here talking about how animals can carry seeds, including humans, and, you know, attaching to them and things like that. Water, coconuts are carried in water, willow seeds carried in water. Expulsion, right? So seeds like popping open and then spreading their seeds that way, and wind. And I think dandelions are probably the most obvious ones for the wind too, but who doesn't love a maple seed? And then down here, I have a vocabulary review. It says show what you know. So we've got all of the vocabulary that's been covered in the notebook so far. And down here with a clue saying drag and drop the words to the correct definitions. You can look back at the rest of the notebook to help find answers. So here again, students would just drag and drop to the area. Pretty simple. And I've included answers for you here for an answer key in the teacher notebook. And then a simple wrap up plant review here. You know, describing the 3 stages of the life cycle of a plant. That's a bigger question than it seems. Name 2 ways seeds can disperse, and then 2 things that surprised you about the life cycle of a plant. This is sort of like an opportunity for reflection here for students. And then at the end of their book, it'll say, congratulations, you are now a life cycle of a plant expert. This is where I got my graphics for the plants, and then my terms of use. And so this is what is included in the teacher version. And then in the student version, you know, I'll go through this quickly. They've got the title page, their welcome, their Google Slides tips, and then they go through all of the slides like we did before, right? This is their seed sort. Of course, there aren't the answers. Next, they have what did they notice? Continuing on with the life cycle of a plant. And then getting all the way down here to their interactive life cycle so they can build their own. Talking about seed dispersion and their vocabulary here and review. And their notebook will simply end with this, with a congratulations sign. And then they can turn it in if you're using Google Classroom. They can turn it in Google Classroom if you're sharing this through Google Classroom. They can share it back with you if that's the way you're doing that. Completely up to you. The teacher set of slides is meant If you're using this in the classroom, you can use your teacher set of slides as explanations and talk students through the notebook. If you're using it for for distance learning, this will have opportunities for you to use things like the Google Slides video and put that in the student copy if you want. Okay, you'll have editing rights to that sort of thing. That's it. You'll have to check out the rest of my interactive notebooks that I have on plants. I have things on parts of plants, photosynthesis, parts of a flower reproduction, and they're all digital interactive notebooks. So check it out. Take care.